Hey guys, what is good? Derek here from Bomb Socks with a new day of Bomb Bites where we feast upon the words of Christ, one bite at a time. So yesterday I introduced you to the concept of the plagues of Egypt. If you remember correctly, the plagues are a disastrous evil or affliction. That's the definition of the word plague, or a large number of harmful or annoying things. Well, welcome to the next several chapters of Exodus, where you're going to see disastrous evils and afflictions and a large number of harmful or annoying things. Now, again, to understand something super important right here, I want to almost play this out as what's called the ultimate battle of the gods, all right? So, to set this battle up, we talked about this last time. Israel was never meant to be a slave. Israel was born to serve God and to influence the world with righteousness. We were never meant to fit in with the rest of the world. In fact, we are meant to gather people out of the world and bring them to Zion. So we're never meant to fit in with the world. In order for Israel to be delivered from bondage, the very gods that held them captive had to be destroyed. That's an important thing to understand as we're going through this week. So the question is, were the plagues just random acts of cursing, or was there a purpose behind each plague? So I'm playing this out again like it's a battle. So we're going to start over in this corner right here. You have Pharaoh, all right? Feel free to boo him on your own if you'd like right there. So Pharaoh, verse number 2. So you go back to chapter 5 where Moses says that iconic phrase, "Let my people go." Chapter 5, verse 2, Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I know not the Lord, neither will I let Israel go." So he's like, God, never heard of him. I'm the God here. I don't even know who this guy is. So we're going to introduce Pharaoh in this corner to Jehovah, the great I am. Now, I love chapter 7, verse 5, where it says, "And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I stretch forth mine hand upon Egypt and bring the children of Israel from among them." So, in this battle between Pharaoh and Jehovah, there are what I like to call 10 rounds here, all right? So this becomes the ultimate battle of the gods, all right? So we're going to go through round 1 here now. Round 1 in this ultimate battle of the gods is the water turning to blood. So Exodus chapter 7, verses 19 to 25, the very lifeblood of Egypt, literally, that Nile is everything to the Egyptians. The water turns to blood. So you've got a god here, and I did a little bit of looking into Egyptian gods right here. So take this for what it's worth. I'm not an expert at all, but you've got Hapi, which is the spirit of the Nile, and you've got Khnum, which is the guardian of the Nile. So this god of the Nile has been destroyed right here. Now the Egyptians, it's interesting, in this chapter it says the Egyptians tried to replicate that. Verse 22, the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments. They're like, haha, we did that too. So, but the bottom line is the Nile has been turned to blood. That is the lifeblood of Egypt, literally. So round 1 goes to Jehovah, all right? Now, what happened in Israel? The waters of Israel were sweet and fit for drinking. That is good to know. All right, so now let's go to round 2. All right, round 2, you have got frogs. Oh, I can only imagine how crazy this was. So chapter 8, verses 5 through 7, it talks about how the frogs are just all over the place. They covered the land of Egypt. But also the Egyptians did so as well. They're like, we can do that too. So what's interesting is the god of fertility and resurrection is Heket. And you look at the face right here. This is kind of cool. The face of the god of fertility is a frog. And apparently the god of fertility is now multiplying out of control. So you have no control over that right there. So round 2 goes to Jehovah again. Now, you go to round 3, lice. Oh, I can only imagine how horrible all of these things. You want to talk about disastrous things. Lice all over the land. It talks about how in verses 16 through 18, how the dust of the land became lice. Crazy. So you have got the god of the earth, which has honestly an anteater face, which is kind of interesting. Geb, the god of the earth. So the earth itself has no control because the dust has been turned into lice. So round 3 also goes to Jehovah. So I think it's interesting how in verse 18 it says the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. And so they're like, dang it, we can't do this one. So round 3 goes to Jehovah. All right. Round 4, you've got flies. Oh, swarms of them. My wife and I were going on a walk the other night, and just gnats were just flying around us a little bit. We were walking past a canal, and just for a moment, we're just swarming like crazy. I can only imagine what it was like to be able to have in chapter 8, verses 21 to 24, flies, swarms of them all over the place. In fact, I was reading about this, how this may not even have been flies. It may have been beetles, like large beetles, like dung beetles. Oh, horrible. Well, there is a god here. It is Shu, which is god of the air. So the god of the air has lost all power. So round 4 goes to Jehovah as well. By the way, there were no flies, no swarms of flies in Goshen. So now you go to round 5. You got the cattle die in chapter 9, verses 4 through 6. Well, you have got Apis, the god of cattle, and you've got Hathor, which is the god in the form of a cow. Cattle were super important to the whole livelihood there. So this round goes also to Jehovah. No cattle in Israel died during this time. You go to round 6, where you've got boils and blains. That's just gross. Blains are pustules that break out of those boils. So that's chapter 9, verses 8 through 11 and 14. You have got a god right here, Bast, which is the goddess of joy, and Ptah, which is the god of healing. So joy and healing was not taking place there. So that god gets taken out. You got round 7, where you've got hail and fire coming down out of the sky in chapter 9. Well, you have Mut and Nut, the great names, goddesses of the sky. All of a sudden, they lose all control over everything. So round 7 goes to Jehovah. I hope you're seeing a pattern here. There was also no hail in the land of Goshen. So now you go to round 8. We're almost there. You got locusts, all right? Chapter 10, verses 12 through 15. You got locusts all over the land. It says they covered the whole face of the earth so that the land was darkened. They did eat every herb of the land and all of the fruit of the trees, which the hail had left. So whatever was left over from the hail, the locusts came in and got those. Well, you have got Seth, which is the protector of crops, and Renut, which is the goddess of the harvest. And they are also taken out right there. Well, round 9, darkness, okay? Chapter 10, verses 21 to 23. You have got Ra, which is the sun god, probably one of the most well-known Egyptian gods. And then you got Horus, who is the god of the day. Those two gods taken out, and they lose all control as well. So round 9. So far, if you're keeping score, we are 9-0 for Jehovah. There was light in Israel's dwellings. And round 10, which we'll talk more specifically about this in a couple of days, you have got the death of the firstborn in Egypt. And that takes out Pharaoh, who is the god of the Egyptians, Osiris, which is the god of life, Isis, which is the goddess of life. So right there, you have got round 10 going to Jehovah. And there was no death amongst Israel, which we will certainly talk about that as well. So, throwing all this together, who is the winner when you're looking at all of these things? Nile, which is the lifeblood of Egypt, the resurrection, earth, air, cattle, which is the source of food. You got sickness, sky, harvest, day and night, and you've got Egypt, which represents the entire world. Who is the winner? Well, I am is the winner. And if you can keep all of that in mind, like I said, the very gods which were holding Israel captive needed to be destroyed. So these were not just random acts of cursing. This was to show judgment against all of the gods of Egypt by doing this. And it shows you he did it then, he can also do it now, which is going to lead us to what we are talking about in tomorrow's episode. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and thanks for sharing these messages. We love that you do that. Please go check out our amazingly comfortable gospel theme socks at bombsocks.com. Godspeed, guys. See you tomorrow.